Hello, everyone, and welcome to the fourth episode of What If Civilization Started Over, where obviously we explore a scenario where civilization starts over. Now, if you haven't seen the first three episodes, I would highly recommend going to watch them, as there is a lot of important backstory there, just in general, some stuff you need to know in order to be caught up. If not, then you have fun trying to knowledge yourself on this. Now, where we left off last time, we saw kind of the growth and then fall of British colonization. We saw our first Asian country being formed over in China. Obviously, we have India, Iran, the Middle East, but I mean like Asia. When you think of Asia, you probably think of China, Korea, Japan. So we have finally gotten countries over there, as we're gonna see a lot more expansion and probably some big conflicts. So now let's begin with the pink country right here, Iran. They kind of just fix up their borders, kind of make it a little better, pushing up to where they've explored, up into Uzbekistan, all of that. Not really giving a care for how much or how little they explore. Um, Further north, we also see this kind of Georgian country continuing its little bits of expansion, but we also see some bits of exploration out this way. Not much, but just minor bits of exploration, people slowly pushing further east. Up in Scandinavia, however, we basically see the entirety of this area being explored, with Finland and Sweden especially making journeys up into these areas that they will hopefully conquer one day, or at least that's their plans. So, we see Sweden, wrong there, we see Sweden continuing their growth north, and they kind of push out over towards the sea and actually cut off any growth that the purple Danish country might have wanted to do. Obviously the Danish country not too happy about that, but they kind of just take the land and move on with it. We also see Finland finally connecting up to this sea, expanding out this way, meeting up with Sweden. They've communicated before across the sea, but now they've truly connected. As now out east or out west, we see some expansion out this way, as the purple country works all on their own to kind of discover more of this area. They discover Ireland, this island up here, and just generally kind of learn about their part of England. And obviously, with that, we see the purple country taking over, and Ireland continuing to become one of the most dominant countries in Europe and in the world, mostly due to their navy. Now, we go out east to China. We see a small little bit more expansion from this Chinese country. They also, um, expand, just kind of explore some more, exploring up kind of where Russia is right now, over in that area. But now we see people beginning to make their own kind of countries, establishing some nations over here. We see more nations popping up. We first see this kind of pinkish country forming in Korea, kind of stretching up the coast. And it's kind of, North Korean country. We see another Chinese country forming all, through here, south of the purple one. And then finally, we see a kind of light yellowish color forming right here, um, wanting to kind of have their own control over here. So the purple nation, what they do, they kind of expand a little bit, trying to grow or kind of control Asia more. Now, obviously, they're still the strongest country over here. In no world is this Korean country gonna beat this. Even all three of these teamed up might not beat this Chinese nation, but that probably won't be for long. So, along with these kind of bigger countries, we see that there's a bunch of countries in this southern part of Korea. I also kind of went in, made the borders look a little bit nicer. But this area, with all these similar colors, they're going to be kind of battling. Not right now, but at some point, they're going to be battling for a while. as we see kind of expansion by this brown Indian country just a little bit up the coast through Bangladesh and whatnot. We see this pink country in India kind of pushing up along this other Indian country's borders, growing its border with the pink kind of Iran nation. And then we see over here the, Carthage, North African Empire continues its expansion, kind of pushing slowly further into the Sahara, but they don't make too much moves. Now we see our our first major battle of this video, as the yellow country, wanting to kind of control a sphere through this area, they begin immediately pushing in to the, kind of darker pink country, the, very dark country. And we see with that the gray country kind of beginning to make its own moves in trying to steal up some land. But the pink country has already moved to kind of stop that, get up here. And the bright pink country goes ahead and takes all of that. So the gray country, they integrate all of their land that they took, thinking the war's over, we just divided up that country. But no, yellow country, they wanted all of that. So they begin to push up this way and swiftly take over all this land. No really resistance. This gray country not fighting back too much. Now this gray country, they want that land. The yellow country starts bringing troops back, thinking war's over, guys. So the gray country starts pushing back, and that's when the yellow country decides, you know what, they want to fight back, we're going to take them all. So they immediately begin pushing in on this country, but before they're able to take all of it, we see the purple country beginning to take in, kind of swoop some bits of it. We see this blue country move in, they also take some bits of it, and the yellow country ends up only getting some of it. So now we see the finished borders without the gray and, darker pink country. We see the Turkish country kind of took some land. The blue, purplish country took a big chunk of land through there. The purple country ended up actually not getting everything they wanted. They kind of had, this whole area right here. They end up not getting that. But the yellow country ends up getting the majority of it. And they bargain with the pink nation to let them keep that other piece of that darker pink country. Now we move south, we see just some general expansion from the Cyan country, from Yemen, as they kind of push further into Ethiopia and stuff like that. We see over in Germany, daily Germany update, if that's what we're going to start calling it now, we see this kind of forest green country just take over that darker blue country. But then we also see this brown country kind of splitting up between north and south, as we also have a bit of land breaking away from the purple country, as this whole area of the purple country, they want to be independent. They weren't really part of the Danish country in the first place. They were kind of occupied with them, so now they declare independence. The Danes threaten to invade, but the Dutch and all these German countries won't allow them. They all plan to kind of gang up on them if they do, so the purple country is forced to kind of concede that land to the independence movement. As we move over to Asia, we see Korea kind of moving their border a little bit north. But then finally we see some conflict in Asia. We see the kind of pinkish country. They begin to make a move in on this brown country. However, this country also begins to make a move on the lilac country. And so now together, these two are able to kind of relatively outnumber this pinkish country and push them out, as we see it get split up into two more countries, completely new governments as well, not even the same rulers in that area. We see this pink Korea quickly swoop in and take that purple one, just wanting to kind of control much of it, and then they also push in and take a lot of this blue one before just downright annexing it. So those Korean nations, knowing they aren't going to be really able to fight against the bigger Korea, they don't do anything. So now we move in on Turkey, where we saw Greece break away recently. They, again, not really Greece anymore, though, due to them not having much of their land. Now we see Turkey. They want this land. They weren't really willing to fight over it because they would have gotten stopped by Albania and this Bulgarian nation. But the new leader of this country has decided that this is their land, they're going to take it. So they immediately move troops in on the southern piece across the river, and then pushing out of Constantinople, they're able to almost fully annex it before the gray kind of Bulgarian country comes in and grabs it, as Albania and Bulgaria continue their offensive to keep Turkey in line. They push them quickly out of that piece of land, and then Greece comes in, takes that bit of land again, as before, and then we see they're not done. They need to teach Turkey a lesson, so we see them kind of pushing further in. Greece pushing in. They surround the city. The Bulgarians, they end up going in and occupying the city, just the city. And then we see out east, we have kind of the bluish nation, beginning to make their move in on Turkey, on this country. And then we see the purple country wanting to reconnect, unite their lands. They push along this coast. Now, Turkey, very obviously outnumbered. We see even this country, who has been relatively neutral since they formed, jumps in. They take some land, but someone doesn't like this. And that someone is the Pink Nation, our first nation. They don't like seeing someone who has been friendly with them getting invaded. So immediately the Pink Nation sends up fleets through the ocean, pushing in on Cyprus, occupying it before running in behind on this Purple Nation, taking over parts of their land and parts that they occupied. So now people are realizing the Pink Nation is involved in this, and a lot of them don't want to get involved in this, but someone who does, Egypt. They want this piece of land. They didn't get it in the peace treaty, so they do make a small push, but they're massively outnumbered, so Pink Nation just sets up a defensive line here for now, and they're unable to make any further moves. But now the Yellow Country wants in on this. They wanted sea access through to the Mediterranean. Now is a perfect chance. They jump in on the Purple Nation, beginning to push quickly through it, and even taking a little bit of the Blue Nation that they had lost from the Gray Nation. Because, like we said, they wanted all the Gray Nation. They kind of got snubbed. But now with that chance, they push through the Purple Nation and almost force it to surrender. The Purple Nation, not wanting to be eliminated, they withdraw troops out of that area, but it's not enough. The Yellow Country has their plans, and they take over the entirety of the nation, leaving it as occupied. But now they want to help Turkey. Turkey hasn't really done anything wrong necessarily. They're just trying to get the lands that they rightfully deserve. So the Yellow Country, they begin by fully integrating all their land, and then they begin to make moves up along this kind of bluish country's border, trying to stop them from taking over the Turks, even moving into their occupied lands. We see the Pink Nation continuing to make moves on countries who have invaded the Turkish nation, as they push in on this kind of reddish one, and they fully take it over. Again, very neutral but very weak. So now the Pink Nation has fully reclaimed the southern coast of Turkey for the Turkish nation. And so now they cede it back because they don't want to have control over it. And with Turkey no longer having to worry about being like single-handedly taken over, they're able to push this country back partially and even kind of push into their territory, but they're not able to like fully take their territory. They're kind of stopped when they reach a big defensive line. But the Yellow Country, they continue their moves. They move in from the south. They move up along the whole pink border, and now the tide of this war suddenly looks very different. Suddenly, Turkey, they begin to push the Albanians and Bulgarians out of their land, and actually kind of pushing Bulgaria back towards their own land as they push into Albania as well, surrounding them from both sides, taking them over, and then occupying this land. And now the war has kind of shifted. The Albanians and Bulgarians and kind of this purplish nation, they were once completely winning this, and now the Turks, they continue their rampage through this purple country, but the gold country has already done such a dent. They've gone up towards the Black Sea, so now this purplish country is kind of forced into surrender, which they accept. So the Turkish country occupies all the land that they occupied, and then the gold nation occupies everything they occupied. They kind of let this purplish nation survive, even though they very easily could have just occupied it all for themselves and been done with it. Now the pink nation, now that their focus is no longer over in Turkey, they're able to make quick moves through Egypt, moving down the coast, moving up the Mediterranean, and very quickly it becomes evident that the pink nation, the first nation, is gonna take over Egypt, and they're less merciful than the Turks. They fully take it because, reminder, this land is theirs. They had owned it once, and now they have just they have reclaimed it as theirs. So now they have full control back over Egypt, and that's kind of where that part of the war ends off. But don't forget, Turkey, they still owned all of this over in Greece, so they're not done. They kind of leave the Bulgarian front alone. They take a little bit more, but then they begin moving through Albania rapidly, taking over these islands, and suddenly this war is back in the position it was with when Greece was around. Turkey landing on the mainland Greece, and Albania is forced to surrender at risk of losing a majority of the land, and the Turks, they get most of their land back, but you'll see that this southern bit they don't get back. Obviously, we're going to give Turkey all this back up. We're going to color it back to their normal color. And then we see a new country forming. It's kind of a like light colored blue. It forms right there as the new de facto Greece. And then we see any lands that weren't really formerly Albanian, they break away and become their own nation, as Bulgaria forced to cede lands to them, but they also end up losing this land over in Macedonia, kind of pushing up on the Serbian blue country's borders. So now the Bulgarians and Albanians, they've lost more than they had ended up gaining when they beat the Turks the first time. And now the entire kind of face of this part of the world, completely different again. The Turks are reestablishing themselves as one of the world power, the regional powers. The pink nation stepping their game back up, and Albania being reduced back down to a small, tiny nation. With little time left in this video, there's one more thing I wanted to get through. This red country, formerly, Ukraine, Romania, they have a new government breaking away. They want to change their ideals. So this orange government, they break away, and they immediately begin to push in on the red country, but the red country, much stronger, is able to push them back. But then they kind of reach a point in the war where they're both just like, do we want to keep fighting, or do we just end it here? So in the end, the orange country doesn't get their goal of fully freeing the red people into this new government, but they also still free a large amount of them. At least half of their people lived in this half of the country, so now they have that control. And that will do it for now. If you want to see more of this, go ahead, like and subscribe. And if you have an idea for this series, you can go ahead, leave a comment. I try and read all of them and integrate all these ideas, and I will credit you with the idea. I won't steal it. So now, that's the end of it. I will see you in episode 5 of What If Civilization Started Over.